We've had some action out of the case in Florida involving the classified documents in Mar-a-Lago and Judge Cannon there, who's kind of been in this back and forth with Jack Smith. So we got some, her motion. She denied a motion to dismiss by President Trump, but within that motion, said it was a timing issue, and she pushed back on Jack Smith. Remember the Presidential Records Act that we discussed a couple days ago, and the fact that Jack Smith thought that even being in a potential jury instruction was absurd, and that the only jury instruction should be his jury instruction, not the defense. And she shot back and responded to that as well, which I think was the more important issue at play within this document, in this filing. So we'll update you on that. And again, that is the most complicated of the cases we would imagine, is this classified documents case, and how Jack Smith has tried to push this along as we get closer and closer to voting, elections, and being difficult for him to do this case. Again, the president's power to declassify on their own without going through a formal process, all these legal issues, and whether or not the court even wants to, long-term, whether a court will even want to determine those bigger questions. Because you could see a case like that, even on an issue like that, going to the Supreme Court on just the issue whether or not a court is going to determine what a system that was set up for the president to benefit the president, so that they could have classified information, but also at any moment declassify it for anyone. You don't have to have the president doesn't have to worry about your security clearance to tell you, if they want to, information that is, he can go on TV and start reading classified information. So the question is, if you don't document it somehow, then are you just able to say, well, I declassified this?
Yeah, I think those rules have been a little blurry.
That's what's blurry here. Now, what happened in this court filing will depend on kind of like what news channel you watch. In one issue, a motion to dismiss from President Trump was denied. But it was denied because the judge in this case, Aileen Cannon, said it was too early to file this specific motion. And it was on that motion was saying, because of the Presidential Records Act, this case can't move forward. The secondary issue, though, was just a couple days ago. Remember the jury instructions, which are actually more important, because I'm not sure these cases are going to get dismissed. Because, again, like I just said, I think you're going to finally have a court is at least going to weigh in to say whether or not this is appropriate for the courts. And that's going to take more than probably just motions. But what she said was, what is the President Trump's team? What would you like in the jury instruction? Went to Jack Smith. What would you like in the jury instruction? None of these were final. And the Jack Smith and the prosecutors, they pitched a fit that President Trump was even allowed to put, they even suggested to put the Presidential Records Act in, and specifically that would be a defense. And she responded within this denial to Jack Smith. And I think this is actually the most important part of this document. It's on page 2. It says, separately, to the extent the special counsel, that Jack Smith, demands an anticipatory finalization of jury instructions prior to trial, prior to a charge conference, prior to the presentation of trial defenses and evidence, the court declines that demand as unprecedented and unjust. The court's order soliciting preliminary draft instructions on certain counts should not be misconstrued as declaring a final definition on any essential element or asserted defense in this case. So basically, continuing that move on Jack Smith is like, you complain and complain before decisions are even made.
Yeah,
you complain that people put information forward, that I even allow them to put information forward, not even that I'm accepting that information as something in the instruction, but that they're allowed to even make their own recommendations. I don't know if this is Jack Smith intentionally slowing things down because he now knows the time is against him and he can't get to Trump before the elections because of the way that the missteps he's had. So, and some of the other issues, like they've had in Georgia, and the list goes on. Or is this just a move he just wants to be in a fight with this judge? Again, a president even has more immunity. Now, what they're alleging, though, is not that there's been no actions taken here. They're saying, well, in this case, it was that you took documents you're not supposed to take. And if you do that, it can be criminal. And, of course, there are people that have been prosecuted. There are people currently being prosecuted in the government for taking classified documents or even just mishandling classified documents. You can go to jail for that, Logan. It doesn't even have to be that intentional. But when it comes to the president, they have the ultimate power around these documents. They're the only person who could literally have the most classified, important secret document in their possession and literally pull a random person off the street and read it to them.
Yeah, and I think somewhat that's presidential
And if
power
you can
that
do that,
you would
then
like.
how can you ever really violate that law by having these documents?
Yeah, I think that's the big debate. And we also know that.
Remember, they didn't bring it against Joe Biden.
We all know that this happened to Joe Biden. Likely, this has happened to other presidents as well.
Thousands and thousands of documents. So if you tried to take this into court, most of the time, a jury would say,
Sure.
"Well, if I had to put myself in that position, and I had millions of these documents, and a week to get them moved somewhere, and then also classify which ones need to go back to this person, which ones have to go back to this person, which ones have to go to this." That doesn't seem very criminal. It's very different than the individual taking the one document to sell to the Russians. I mean, that's different. That's an easy crime. You can point that all the different crimes there. But when you have lots of these documents you're sorting through, and you've only been out of office for less than a year, people I think have a lot more sympathy to say, I don't think this was like an intentional move to do anything wrong. This was just like a part of the issue of being president of the United States. Jack Smith they're all nervous because they're getting close to running out. They've run out of time, and they have, again, because they brought, and like he has done in the past, kind of junky cases.
And we're 213 days, I just looked, from election day. So I think they know the clock is starting to run out.
I don't understand how Biden, as a senator and vice president, can get away with having classified documents when President Trump is the only person in the entire country that has a right to these documents. And this is such a biased and prejudicial prosecution. Are his lawyers ever going to raise that issue with the judge?
I get the talking point, right? Because I agree with you that it's the way that President Trump is being treated by the court system is lawfare, is what we've called it. It's like they're going after every possible potential. If they can file it, they will file it to make you go through the process, to try and almost like freeze you out, distract, make it look like you couldn't be president because you've got all these issues and all these different cases that you've got to pay for, and millions of dollars of legal fees that you've got to do in this state and that state, and your criminal fees and civil fees in federal court, state court, and in the city court in New York as well. And you can't do business here anymore. But what you can't say is that, because Joe Biden didn't get charged for it, that Donald Trump can't either. That's not how our legal system works. It's not. It's prosecutors look at what they're able, the evidence, and they decide, am I going to really be able to convince a jury, a court, a judge on some matters, at specific legal standards, that this was committed and that it was done intentionally, or you have to go through the elements of a crime. And Robert Hur, who was investigating Joe Biden, said ultimately he thought the way he would come across was too old and probably just like an old man who didn't know anything about these pages, and so he'd have a very difficult time prosecuting him in front of a jury. Jack Smith knows that's not an issue for Donald Trump. And Jack Smith decided, I think I could take this to a jury, and I think I could get him convicted. So that's decisions they have to make with the facts that they have researched